All right, so you should have seen everything. So let me double check everything, make sure everything's going for you. There we go. All right, good morning, everybody. I'm Keith Mathis. Welcome to another webinar. And so I appreciate you coming to be part of this particular webinar, just like always. This webinar is entitled Reinventing the PMO, from Policing Projects to Driving Growth. Many of you who are involved in the PMO already know this, but it's been interesting in the 30 years that we've been working with PMOs and organizations with projects to watch the evolution of the PMO. And so I hope that you're seeing that as well at your organization. The PMO years ago used to be looked at as kind of a distant organizational office that would organize some projects, maybe just for one department or one agency or something like that. And it's interesting now to be able to see that the PMO is actually maturing with many organizations, and you're starting to see them actually get to such a point where they're actually, they're giving input to upper management with their goals and objectives and things. And so the reason for that really is because these projects that are being run are connected to organizational KPIs or goals or objectives or strategic plan, and that's the right mindset. And so it's good to see PMOs starting to mature. Now, maybe your organization's not one of those, and if not, that's okay. I get it. But it is interesting to see the evolution of PMOs. And so if you're working in that area, hopefully you're seeing something. Well, today we're going to be talking about reinventing the PMO, from policing projects to driving growth. And that's exactly what you're really wanting everything to do, is to be able to drive the growth all the way through the project, all the way from the strategic plan down to the frontline project. That's where they should be connected, okay? So let's give you a little definition and purpose of the PMO. Make sure we're all singing the same hymn this morning, okay, as we talk about this. So a couple of things here. So if you're not as familiar with the PMO, it's called a project management office. It's a specific group of skilled professionals within an organization. They provide project management oversight, assessment, and support. Now, I've hit all three of these, and I kind of toyed with it back and forth because yours might only provide support and not assessment, or not a lot of oversight. I get it. Maybe yours, when I'm talking about all these PMOs really evolving, maybe yours hasn't evolved to that point. But in general, this is what a PMO is supposed to do. A lot of times the PMO is also in charge of training and creating best practice manuals that's going to flow in all of these different things. So that's a tremendous thing to be able to see all of that happening in those organizations. Now, I don't know if they're on today, but about a couple of years ago, I got a contact from a PMO out of Canada, and they said that they tap into our webinars like we are right now, the live webinars, and that's when she has a meeting with all of her project managers. They go through a 1-hour webinar, then they talk about the topic we're talking about, and then they go ahead and have their group meeting that they typically have once a month. And so I appreciated knowing that, because once again, I agree with that, because this is part of that ongoing development, educational development that we all need. We need to hear what someone else is thinking. And it's not like we're necessarily agreeing with everything. We don't run the same type of projects. So there might be something that I'm talking about and you think, well, that wouldn't work in our industry. I get it, because your industry, you have to customize all of your processes and your framework to that industry. And that's what we should be doing. But it was interesting to have someone send me an email and say, hey, just so you know, this is what's happening. So if you're on here, I hope you're still doing that, because that's exactly what you're wanting to be able to do. All right, some purposes of the PMO. So the purpose really is to serve at the enterprise level. Now, this is the utopia statement right here for you, okay? Because maybe yours is more of a department level, or maybe yours is more of just one section of your organization, and there's no way you're at the enterprise level. But this would be the utopia. This is where you're really trying to go, because as PMOs get to a point where they're in the enterprise level, that's where they're really influencing the strategic plans, and they're really influencing all the different aspects associated with driving projects from a strategic level. And that's what you're hoping will happen. And that's where it will funnel into all the different priorities, making certain priorities with the project, also optimizing the resources. You're not just looking at a handful of 7 people who work on a team and report to you. You're looking at multiple teams and multiple people who are working on projects. And so it's more of a consulting role of a PMO once you get to something like this in many cases. So there's different types of PMOs, as many of you already know. So let's break it apart a little bit, and so that you're aware of which of these we're talking about. So the first one's going to be supportive. Now, a supportive PMO has little or no control over the project. They make recommendations, but they don't control anybody. Nobody reports to them. And so what happens is that this is probably, I would say, the lowest level. PMI would definitely say this is the lowest level. This is a recommendation committee. So you can make recommendations of wanting people to use templates or wanting them to do WBS or wanting them to, be more, not allow change orders in their sprints. That's a recent one that we just had a discussion with. But the point is, this one has the least amount of control. Now, if you've just started your PMO, might start right here. It's very supportive. People are still trying to figure everything out. So that would typically be your lowest level for this. The second one's going to be controlling. Now, controlling sounds like it would be the highest. And those of you who took your PMP test know this is one of the things that they test you on a lot of times, is to see whether you know the difference between controlling and directive, which is your highest group. But controlling PMOs provide guidance, best practices. They make recommendations. Maybe they're brought in to look at scheduling and approaches, different things like this. Nothing wrong with this. But this is, once again, part of that evolution. You might be here, but you don't want to stay stuck here. You're really wanting to get to the directive side as quick as possible. And so the directive is the last one. And so they have the most power and control over the project. In many cases, if you are a directive PMO, all of the project managers in the whole company maybe report to that PMO. And you're definitely, in many cases, on that enterprise level. So you're having discussions with upper management on what's going on and how it's driving those KPIs and how it's driving those strategic plans. And so these staff typically report to or work for the PMO at this level. And there's a lot more power and control that you have and responsibility right here. Now, let's talk about specialized PMOs. This has recently come out with new information, and this is part of that evolution I was talking about of PMOs growing. And so there's some special ones. And so building the PMO, let's lay some foundation for this. So begin with why. Why do we need a PMO? Now, maybe your organization doesn't need one. I don't think that everybody has to have everything, okay? And maybe you're an organization and you run projects, and there is no the accountability and the responsibility sets with your team and management, and it doesn't seem to be a problem. Everything seems to run very smooth. Maybe you don't need one. But most of the time when you need a PMO, you're wanting to give more oversight to the team. Maybe you've got new workers that are working in a lot of areas. And then also that strategic area. We're just now moving into the strategic area, so we're starting a PMO because we're going to influence all the projects from a macro standpoint for the organization rather than that micro standpoint that we've had. Maybe we're getting ready to emphasize more money, so it's a portfolio oversight, or we're wanting to emphasize more training and get our people trained up in project management or increase communication. All of these components can make a difference on why you should have a PMO. And so what type of problems will be solved? What type of value can we deliver? And here's the thing to remember. In a PMO, you want to make sure that you are delivering value. You're not just another place that has to have somebody else sign off on something. Oh my gosh, if that's the PMO that you're looking at, that's a wrong thing. You don't need somebody else signing off on anything, even though you might sign off on stuff. You're wanting something that's bringing value to the projects, increasing the possibility of success for those projects. You're that internal consultant that's talking to those teams, making recommendations to those teams, and explaining to them how to do some stuff. All of us have different levels of employees. Some are brand spanking new and don't know a lot, but you're that internal consultant that's going to be helping them in those areas. Now, different types of PMOs, just a little bit broader area for you, there. Hey, if you can you guys hear me? I heard something go off on this side. If you can hear me, give me a thumbs up, please. Can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up, please. Thank you. Okay. I just want to make sure I hadn't cut off. Okay, so here's the types of the PMO. So strategic enterprise PMO. This is really the one that's probably the most mature and the best one that we possibly have, okay? The second would be a transformation PMO. Now, maybe you've not heard of this. Organizations that are shifting over to a brand new systems, brand new way of doing business, maybe even brand new products might do a transformation PMO. You'll see this sometimes when one organization purchases another, and so they're trying to transform that organization to do something different. So this is almost like a strategic change that's happening across. So they come in they emphasize a transformational PMO, All the projects are for the purpose of shifting that organization, its culture, maybe its products as well, from one thing to another. The other is value management PMO. In other words, what kind of value can we bring to the table? And of course, one of the things that you're doing consistently here with this is that you're going to be bringing value. You should be bringing value anyway. If we're not bringing value, if money gets tight, our PMO could be one of the first things that get cut. So you always want to make sure that you're there bringing value. You're giving insights. Innovation PMO. Innovation PMOs are something that people are starting to look at because of new technology. And we'll talk about that a little bit more here in a moment. And then Center of Excellence is kind of the Cadillac. A lot of times it takes years, maturity. Your PMO director is someone who is absolutely a major asset, a major experience, bringing major experience to that organization. And then you might have digital or AI-enabled PMOs. This is becoming brand new. It's coming, hitting a lot of the organizations right now to where they want a PMO, but they're wanting it to look at all of the different pieces of how they're going to use AI. So let's do a deep dive into some of these real quick here. All right, so the strategic enterprise. So sometimes it'll go by the acronym SEPMO, which means Strategic Enterprise Project Management Office. And so it's a high authority. So this is really one of those that's you're definitely at the top working with management. The projects are being filtered down, obviously, but they're coming from the top. It's not about enforcing templates. It's not about enforcing sign-offs. It's all about organizational structure and success. How can we run projects more efficiently and be more successful? And so you're taking your audience from project management office to enterprise strategy. Let me say it again. You're taking your people from a project management office mindset to an enterprise strategy. We are driving the strategic plan, and we're doing it through this type of organization. A second would be the transformation PMO that we talked about. It orchestrates people, processes, and technology. It shifts to move an organization from the current state to the future state. Now, many of you have read Kotter's book, the professor from Harvard, on creating change. One of the best books that's ever been written on this. But it focuses on strategic transformation. How can we do business differently? And of course, many companies are having to do this right now, and many nonprofits are, and many of you I know are with state government. You're having to do it differently as well. Where can technology take that pressure off that we presently have people because we don't have enough people? And so what happens is that you're focusing on that strategic transformation rather than some type of routine delivery type of project. Not anything wrong with those, but that's really the emphasis of something like this. Third one's going to be value management PMO. This one, like I said, all of these should be bringing value, but this is an enterprise function as well, and it's focused on maximizing business value in every initiative we do. And so what can we do to bring value to our customers and so that our customers want to do business? It shifts the organization from delivering projects to delivering value. One of the reasons we do a lot of the things we do is we want to have value with our customer. We want that connection. We care about their progress. Many of you maybe got the email from Kim this week. We just started a brand new short type of webinar. We're sending out 2 videos a week called the 7-minute PMP preparation and mastery. And so we do in 7 minutes, we talk about a different piece of the PMP. So those of you who are listening today who do not have your PMP, these are some things you're wanting to tap into. And so we already have 3 out, and it's doing all social media with TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of those places, so that people will be able to do it. And then what happens in a couple more weeks, I send out another one, and we send out another couple of videos on this. And so once again, trying to bring some value to the people that we get a chance to work with. Then also you have an innovation PMO. It's an organizational function designed to identify, incubate, accelerate, scale innovative ideas that drive competitive advantage. Now, for those of you who are working in projects, sometimes we forget that our project is bringing value. The reason why you're there is that you are bringing value to that organization. In this case, you might be running more agile or scrum projects because you're product driven. It even has the flair in the definition of product driven. But the goal behind it is to systematically coordinate the output of those products, to build a repeatable pipeline for discovering, developing breakthroughs, ideas, emerging technologies, new business models that future-proof the organization. In other words, we're not just concerned about the customers we have right now, even though we want them. We're concerned about the future customers that we're going to have. We're trying to build customers that's down the road. So an innovation type PMO. The next is going to be the Center of Excellence. This is a Cadillac in many cases. And if you've seen one or have one, God bless you, because this took a lot of work to get there. And so it's an organizational function that builds and sustains world-class project delivery capabilities. You're producing projects that have that wow factor for your organization. You work like just a fine tooth comb. I mean, you are working so good with your people. The methodologies, if there's a problem, you have expertise there with those methodologies. So this is kind of a Cadillac for many. So it's to elevate capability, maturity across the project teams, ensure excellence in project practices, leadership processes, and all of these different type of areas. So if you have a center of excellence, this is the Cadillac. You don't get much better than this because it's the people are so workable and have so many skills they've brought to the table. And then one of the things that's popping up right now, and you might be in the middle of this, even if you don't call it this, it's a digital AI enabled PMO. Because we're looking at so many different aspects of AI and how to run an AI project, this is causing some of your PMOs to really kind of specialize in running those AI projects. We're writing a program and we're supposed to teach it for FAA this summer on how to run and implement AI into your organization. And what I'm discovering in all the research and from reading on really failures is like 80% of these projects are failing because they're trying to run it like a normal data project. And so we're researching it right now. And so the men and women out in Washington, D.C., who always they're my guinea pigs for every new course, Dieter's group out at FAA. And so we're going to be talking about how to implement AI and do a big data project. And so I hope it's good. It's not written totally yet. It's just in sketch form, but that would fit this right here. So it's to boost the organization's performance, strategic delivery, but you're using a digital platform such as AI tools. And of course, all of us are being touched with AI from so many different ways right here. Also now building the PMO, sizing the PMO. So sometimes people think, well, we've got to have this great big old PMO in order to help our company. The answer to that is no. You might have 3 project managers and someone who works for the PMO part-time, and you might be bringing a ton of value to that organization. But if you do run tons of projects, you might be looking at trying to formalize it a little more. A lot of times the resistance here is because we don't see the value of having a full-time PMO director with full-time project managers. What most of us do, me included, and you do it too probably, is you wear the hat of project manager and then you do your real job. And so we split it throughout the day. And we got 3 projects, and so that's what we do all the day. So how many projects are being run each year could make a difference on this. What percentage of projects would really drive that strategic level? Who manages them? What type of skills are we currently missing? Because the skill development would be a piece of it. What level of reporting is needed? And so, if you've got an organization and there doesn't seem to be communication breakdowns and your projects are not failing, they're doing good, you might not need to go to that next step. So it's not a one size fits all for everybody. So let's talk about some of the goals that we have to look at for a PMO, okay? So the first is increasing organizational value through strategic alignment. That's the ultimate goal, is to show that we can bring value by running things in a systematic way, whether it's Scrum, Agile, hybrid, or traditional waterfall. We bring value. You're improving project delivery and performance. The customer's getting what they want. You're enhancing the organizational project management maturity. You're strengthening governance and risk management. We know what's happening is really what that thrust of that is. We know what's happening. We're communicating what's happening. Upper management knows what's happening. We're optimizing the resources that we have. We're fostering that culture of continuous improvement. How can I get better? How can our projects get better? And then strengthening stakeholder engagement, communication, so people on the teams are not lost on what's happening. So those are really some of the goals that we would want to develop and continue to develop them, even at the highest level that we possibly are. So also one of the pieces of increasing organizational value, I've hit it a couple of times, so let's kind of do a little bit of a deep dive on this. And so through strategic alignment, the strategic alignment might be something new for you, but it's something that PMI has been driving for the last several years. And it makes so much sense when you think about it, that our projects should be a component of our strategic goals. And so that way management's supportive of what we're doing. And what we're doing is making sure that we're driving some piece of that strategic plan. So it aligns there, but it prioritizes high value work. What should be the most valuable work we're doing in any organization? Well, it should connect to that strategic goal, because what happens is those goals have been locked in by the leadership. And so it should be there. So if I'm in a state, where's the governor going? And then where do all the department heads think that we need to be going? If I'm at a company, where's the CEO and the CFO think that we should be going? That's going to make a huge difference. So it provides the governance, provides standards, it tracks strategic performance. You maximize limited resources. It can increase transparency and trust. It can reduce waste. It can strengthen organizational agility. The ability to be able to work with a PMO and have all of this coordinated under their eyes is going to be huge, because you've got one or two people who are watching all of these pieces. What we have so many times, and this is not a criticism, so please don't take it like this if you're in this boat, but what we have so many times is we function like maybe even a PMO in this agency or department, and we almost have the same thing over here, and then we almost have the same thing over here. And so we've got a lot of oversight, but we've got oversight all in these silos. Well, you don't have any general coordination among everything else possibly. And so that creates a little bit of a challenge. All right, the other piece is improved project delivery and performance, standardized high velocity delivery frameworks. So most of us always want to do our projects cheaper, faster, all of those things we all hear and desire every time. So velocity. However, our problem is resources. We've got the same pool of people that's on every project. That's the reason why we all have so many projects. And so delivery performance rises when teams stop reinventing the wheel, and a PMO can create consistency. And that's really the big thing. So what happens is we're not having to reinvent the wheel because we're coordinating everyone. We're making suggestions that one group has learned that another group now does not have to learn. You improve delivery and predictability through that data and that transparency, and performance is able to improve on those projects. Now, you're not going to have 100% on time and on budget projects. That's just not realistic. We all have hiccups that we have to deal with, but you are going to have more consistency is what you're trying to do. You also are strengthening delivery capacity and remove systematic blockers. So strong teams fail if the environment works against them, and that's what you're not wanting to have happen. And the PMO can address some of these structural barriers that hinder. For an example, we all know that there are things that eat up time. And sometimes you'll get control freaks that are in an organization and they want to sign off on everything. And so you literally are going every few days to have somebody sign off on something. All that's doing most of the time is not increasing quality. Most of the time that's slowing everything down. And so what happens is you're in these meetings all the time that you cannot do the work of the project because we're in another meeting because we've got to have another sign off. Now, I'm not saying that you don't need some sign offs. Of course, you have sign offs, but you don't need it to where some control freak, it feels like they have to sign off every time you sneeze. That's silly. That's going to kill your project. The other piece is enhancing organizational project management maturity. What can we do to mature our people? What can we do to make our people feel have more competency? So a mature PMO brings stability because you've got people you trust. And I know as I'm speaking right here, I can look at some of the names on here, and I know there are some of you, man, you are great in projects. Your people love working with you. The team members love it because there's maturity there. And when there's a problem, nobody's running from a problem. They're trying to flesh it out and see how can we make this thing work. But there are people who don't handle it as well. And those are some that they're needing to learn from you, be mentored from you, or coached by you. So building organizational capability through target talent development. How can we give people more skills? How can we expand the skills they have? You know, if you've heard me on any of the seminars I've done, I'll say this every now and then. How do you get to be a great project manager is because you worked on a crappy project at some point in time. And that project was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I'm on this. I should have went to truck driving school. You know, I mean, we have those type of things, and I have them too. And then you work it out. You've got good people. Everybody's trying to work on it, but it didn't go exactly as planned, and it didn't work out. And you end up finishing the project. So how do you get that experience? Just like I said, we've all worked on those projects, and you think, oh my gosh, poke me in the eye. How did this thing happen? But nevertheless, you're in the middle of trying to make it work. So the PMO can definitely help in some of those areas by improving the skills of people and being an encourager. Listen, we all have hiccups, and so you can be the greatest project manager on this call, but we've all had hiccups, and sometimes you do need somebody coming alongside and encouraging. Also, strengthening governance, risk management, strengthen portfolio level controls. Notice that everything we're talking about is going back up to strategic plan, going back up the lineage to the portfolio level. So you've got your strategic plan. Your strategic plan then divides the money as how they're going to drive all these different projects or plans, okay? And so that's the portfolio level we're talking about. You maybe have an actual portfolio director or a portfolio executive. Nothing wrong with that. If not, you got a CFO. So they provide the executives with confidence that the money is there or the money's going to be there for that project. Sometimes when you're looking at a PMO too, is that unified governance framework. We understand what's happening with our projects. We have a classification for projects. It's no longer a situation where the loudest person gets the project or the loudest person, their project's the highest priority. We have a ranking system. And so those that are governance that deal with some type of legal piece, those are going to be higher priority projects. These others would come in, they're important, but they would come in a secondary way. And so that would make a difference for some of these. And then you're optimizing resource utilization, your people, greatest resource you have. It's not only about who is assigned, it's about eliminating low value work. We sometimes have people working on such Mickey Mouse silly stuff that someone else could actually do, or maybe it didn't even need to be done in the first place. But we'll put some of our high octane people on something that really they shouldn't even be having to look at. So you're trying to build that dynamic of resources around using your high effective people in the high effective projects that they need to be in. Also, centralizing visibility to enable enterprise-wide allocation. Now, notice this is going back to the enterprise, and maybe your organization's not there. I get it. You've got a PMO, but it's just in the technology department or just in the technology silo. I get it. But over time, hopefully, this will continue to expand. And so it can only optimize what you can clearly understand and see. And so if I'm in technology and we have a PMO for the technology department and that's all we have, then how can we optimize our people for that technology department? How can we make sure the workloads are balanced? Or I'm not burning out my best people working on silly stuff. They're working on the most important stuff because they're my best people. And then my other projects, I've got people working on them that are good people, but they're not quite there yet. They're still learning. And so it doesn't have as much risk. And so it's a lower risk project. So I put a B team member on that. And you don't call them that, but nevertheless, they're growing, they're learning. And I consult with them. I coach them through that. So let's talk about the culture of continuous improvement. Thankfully, you're on here to pick up. I'm not stupid. You're getting your PDU out of this thing, and so I understand how that works. So that you stay certified, and you don't have to take the PMP again. But that continuous improvement has to be there for all of us. How can I get better? How can I get better as a project manager? How can I get better in any area of my life? I don't bring this up much with Wanda because I'm afraid her list would be the size of War and Peace novel of how I could get better. I'm thinking, I think of one or two things. I bet she could think of 1,001 things. So I don't talk about continuous improvement of how I can be a better husband, but we're trying to be a better dad, a better husband, better grandpa, wherever you are in your life, even on the personal side, you're trying to do that. But the PMO is looking at how can we continuously improve so that we can allow people to be exposed to things that they maybe have not been exposed to, so that when they need it, they've already kind of walked through it. It might be in training, but they've walked through it. Executives can empower the PMO to transition from an administrative reporting to actually analytical type of leadership, to where you're analyzing what things are rather than just reporting. And so that makes a difference on that connection with upper management as well. Strengthening the stakeholder engagement, communication, empowering the PMO to function as an organization stakeholder radar. Gather, analyze, translate stakeholder expectations into actionable intelligence for project teams and leadership. Huge, because why? This is the new wave. So for an example, did the PMO already recognize that AI was coming before everybody saw it on the news? Did the PMO automatically analyze what the impact of AI would be to that organization or to those projects or to your technology before it started coming out on the news? See, we want to be on the front end of something looking at it rather than on the back end. And so you're building that communication for that as well. So positioning the PMO as a guardian of communication clarity, of truth, rather than you're having all these things, these hearsays. You're not getting it from a vendor who's trying to sell you something. You're getting, the truth because your people are analyzing it, researching it. And then building a PMO scorecards and tracking ROIs, return on investment, customer value, cycle times, not just deliverables. So let's hit this for a moment here. So we've got sample scorecards, whatever that scorecard needs to be. So PMO metric areas. So for an example, strategic alignment. This is going all the way back to the top. 95% of the projects align to a strategic goal. That will change the whole dynamic of the organization instantly because you're always working on the highest priority. Project delivery performance. 88% is on time, on budget as we work on this. Stakeholder satisfaction. Out of a 5-point scale, we're getting a 4 to a 5-point scale from stakeholder ratings. The stakeholders feel like we're communicating with them. Resource optimization, 82% of the resource utilization efficiency. So that means the people who are running projects and working on teams, we're getting an 82% resource utilization efficiency. Now, you might look at that and think, man, I think that's low. It could be for your organization, but there are organizations that are getting 40% resource utilization. We look at this and shout hallelujah, because that would be 82%. So they still have places to work, but the point is it would still be a lot better than what they're thinking. And then value realization. What kind of return on investment? Are we really getting the money back and the time savings and all the things that we built this project up for it to do? And that's yet to be seen in AI totally, because we're hearing that how AI will save time, and it is in some places, but will it at your organization, and will it with your customers, and will it in your environment? It might or might not. So that's yet to be seen in your particular organization with your projects. Now, to show you a PMO scorecard, I thought this would be a good one just to kind of show you here. And so you've got your dimensions. So value delivered, customer impact, speed to value, delivery predictability, capability, your KPI, your key performance index, that's always aligned with your organization's or your business goals and objectives. The target, what our target should be, and then what's our score. And so these are 1 to 5. These are 1 to 5 scores for this that we've set up for you. And so notice, everything's green because you're in the 4 and 5s. Those are going to be green. Notice the 3s, there's a little bit of caution. So we need to watch those and look at those. But scorecards are not going away because you have AI. If anything, you want to oversee AI. AI is not perfect. And so that you want to be able to have human in the loop, and, with everything of AI, to be able to double check and make sure everything's running the way it should. Now, replacing compliance heavy reviews with outcome focused portfolio health checkups. I thought this was an interesting concept. I want to just hit it very quickly here. So making the transition. So we're looking at that value side. So part of transition is to move from enforcement of deliverables and templates to something that's meaningful results. We can have we can be on time, on budget, produce the project, maybe even come in under budget, and yet it not fix what we thought it was going to fix. And we've all talked about that before. We spent a lot of money and time, but didn't fix what we thought we were going to fix. So are we on track to deliver value? Did we bring value to that customer? And AI is going to be one of those. Is AI going to bring value in the way that you're wanting to use it? Are you reaching expected benefits? Are we improving time and value? And can we quantify that some way to be able to justify our project? Are decisions being able to be run in a timely manner? That's going to be a part of it as well. And then use data and dashboards rather than slides and slide decks. So here's what we're looking at here. Not anything wrong with slides and slide decks, but you're really wanting to be able to show people data and become more data driven rather than gut. Well, I feel like we're doing pretty good. Well, I think we're making it pretty good. Why don't we even use that verbiage? We want to be able to go back to data and say why something's working or why something's not working. So the goal is for PMs to spend time solving problems, not preparing decks. And so that's what the end result is. Rather than for a meeting, we can solve a problem. We know exactly what's been fixed. Examples would be real-time heat maps, value burn-down charts, risk signals, trend scoring, AI-driven scheduling and risk predictions, portfolio and Kanban visualizes flow and bottlenecks, so that when people are looking at something, they're getting the whole message, not just a number on an Excel sheet or on a PowerPoint slide. I'm not saying any of those are wrong typically, but I'm saying we want to make sure that we're getting the right message across. Then also running quarterly portfolio health conversions. Remember, portfolio is going to the pot of money that's being given to you from upper management. So how healthy are we spending this money? Not just are we on budget and on time, but how is this money, is it enough money? Did we actually calculate it correctly? So structure reviews, strategic coaching sections, not audits. And so start with a value delivered this quarter. Discuss what's working, what's stuck. Identify decisions leadership can unblock, and agree on next step value priorities. All of this has that air of success, encouragement. We're in this together. And so the tone shifts from inspection to enablement and acceleration. And so people are there to help, not just you should have done better, because all of us could have done better in so many of these particular cases. One of the little shows that we watch, and some of you probably don't watch this, but I watch Young Sheldon. And so Young Sheldon, if you're not familiar with this is kind of a spinoff from the Big Bang, where Sheldon was a genius as a little child. But the scene that I was talking to my grandson about, and we had such a laugh about when he saw it, was that Sheldon's sitting at the library table and he's talking to his friend, and so they both open up their lunch. And so he opens up his lunch and he's reading a note, and his note tells it's from his mom, says, "Hey, I love you. I just want to hope you have a great day." And that was her note. And Sheldon goes, "Oh, that's so nice." And Tam, who is friend on the other side, he opens up, he said, "Oh, I got a note too." And it's from his mom. And his mom says, "You can do better." I fell out laughing because I thought, oh my gosh, is that not so stinking funny? Now, if you don't get it, that's okay. But I told that to my grandson and we were watching it. He was falling out. You could do better. And so that's become our little joke. But the truth is, most of the time we can do a little bit better, can't we? We could do a little bit better. All right. So establishing quarter alignment workshops between the PMO, the executives, and business units. Great example that I read about that I thought was excellent, because this, once again, it's on success side. So why this workshop matters. So bridge both the strategy, the execution gaps, improves portfolio governance and value realization. It enhances a cross-functional collaboration. It builds executive confidence in the PMO. Now they're calling it a workshop. If that doesn't fit for you, that doesn't matter. But the purpose behind this is, once again, you're talking through any of those hurdles that you're having. And this is with the people who sign the check. These are the people who are making money decisions for your organization. What they say is going to clear a lot of, you're not trying to get up to that person or those people, they're already there for you. Next, establishing the structure for some type of workshop or meeting like this. So create a standing calendar. This is not something you're not fighting for. This is something that's being done on some type of periodic basis. Core participants create an executive dashboard that they're going to see, begin showing strategy. And I know some of you are doing some of this as well. Show how PMO projects connect to the strategy. Once again, you're running a project, but it's running this strategic goal. And then what success factors that drive those type of improvements and how that can be so beneficial. So the point is, whatever you call it, I could care less. It doesn't matter. But to be able to have that access, to be able to have that meeting and to be able to go through it so quickly is going to be huge with those projects. All right, let's talk about introducing adaptive funding models tied to business outcomes instead of fixed budgets. Now, all of us like fixed budgets, but you can't run projects for very long before you realize that the fixed budget becomes a pain on some of your projects, and your fixed schedules do as well. And so we have to be able to do this and look at this. So let me give you a couple of points on this just to consider. And this isn't for every project, but it is for something for you to consider. Adaptive funding is a financial approach. It allocates resources based on the achievement of measurable business outcomes rather than adhering to a rigid preset budget. Now, if I know this would cause major struggles for some of you because you're budgeting 18 months out for some of these projects. But the point is, this allows some of that adaptive funding to be able to happen. Instead of approving a fixed amount at the start of a physical cycle, funding is released incrementally and adjusted as the project demonstrates value, progress, and changing business priorities. What it feels like is that the budget is evolving. And so what happens is the budget is evolving. You have X number of dollars for the next 7 months while you're doing this. Well, you have X number of dollars for the next 7 months as you do the next piece. And so it's done almost like phase budgeting to allow you to make some of the adjustments. Now, some of you, your financial background with your organization, this wouldn't allow for that to happen, but it would remove some of the challenges we have to where this time our money was right on. Next time we're way over budget and everybody's freaking out because this was just a more costly section of the project. Things that we were buying were more expensive. We didn't realize we were going to be paying tariffs when we set the budget 18 months ago. We didn't know tariffs were going to be hitting these particular products. So a lot of different things have caused a little bit of a challenge for us. The fixed budgets lock organizations into predetermined spending limits, often encouraging the completion of outdated plans or unnecessary expenditures to use the budget. We've all seen those projects, and that the budget was set 2 years ago. It was delayed for 2 years, and then it came out, but the budget couldn't change, the timeline couldn't change, but yet the money and the products have changed on what the pricing is for so many of them. And so we had to go back through and try to massage those budgets in some particular way. Now let's talk about the PMO maturity assessment that benchmarks growth contribution year after year. Once again, you're going back to that value mindset of a PMO. And so you're defining the purpose. So a PMO maturity assessment must go beyond operational. It should quantify the contribution to business growth. So if we've put in technology or data and it saves 5 people, how much money is that saving our organization over time? Now, we didn't get rid of those 5 people. We're using them someplace else most of the time, but we're no longer having to pay 5 people to do that particular thing. So the purpose is to identify the evolution of what the PMO is bringing to the table. A PMO should not be something that is, when money gets tight, that we get rid of them because they're bringing so much value. They're one of the last things we would ever want to cut because they're bringing value through all the projects and the money and the savings, and they're anticipating and reducing risk with what they're seeing. So it's that culture of continuous improvement because they're bringing so much value to the organization. So establishing quantitative or qualitative benchmarks. And so to evaluate growth year after year, you build benchmarks in 3 areas in particular. Yours might have more than this. What is the domain? What's the metrics? And what's the assessment approach? And so you have performance efficiency. What's the percentage of projects on time, on budget, and at the portfolio level, return on investment, resource utilization. So you've got quantitative trends. And so rather than the PMO being someone who's making sure everything is signed off and everybody uses the template, they're now in the role of analysis. They're looking at the analysis of the projects and what they're seeing. Strategic alignment. Let me go ahead and do that one before we move. So percentage of projects linked to business strategy, executive sponsorships, and quality. So you're looking at qualitative leadership interviews that document some of these audits. But once again, you're looking to see that this executive is really pushing this particular strategic plan or strategic goal, and that we are definitely going into that particular area as well. So just something for you to think about. So linking PMO maturity to business growth, executives respond to numbers tied to value. Translate maturity gains into business metrics. For an example, if I had to have surgery, I wouldn't want to know how fast my doctor could cut my heart open and do a heart repair. I'd want to know what the success factor is on this bad boy. Now, I don't need heart surgery, thankfully. But the point is that I'd want to know what the success factor is rather than how fast they can do it. Speed is not what I'm measuring. I'm measuring whether I'm going to get up and walk out of here. And that's really what we're talking about here. We're measuring the value that they bring. So as you link these, executives respond to the value. You translate maturity gains into business metrics. And so one of those areas is going to be cost efficiency. Are we using our money the right way? And are we making it go as far as it can go? So can we reduce rework or wasted time, faster decision cycles, any of those things to where it's not sucking down a lot of time. Strategic agility. Are we being able to, with faster pivots and capability, alignment with the market and shifts? So like for an example, is your organization going to be able to shift with AI? People gripe about AI. They don't like AI. They're fearful AI is going to take their job. AI is here. Whether we like it or not, it's here. Just like when the internet came in, it's here. And so how can we use this to be able to better us in our jobs? How can we use this to be able to make our jobs easier? Not take our job, but have that human in the loop with that job. And so the point is that are we able to pivot to be able to do that? Capability and growth, are we being able to increase certified PMs? Or advanced analytics and adoption. And so is that going to benefit our organization? And then predictability, that's what it all comes back to. I know my people, I know what kind of projects we run, and I know what I can expect is going to be the output from them. I trust them. There's a transparency there. And I know if they need help, I'm going to hear from them. And so higher forecasting accuracies are going to be components of that. Next, let's talk about talent development. So this is part of why we do this as well. But the PMO would really wear that umbrella very well. So professional development, and it doesn't have to be anything formal. It doesn't even have to be anything you're paying anybody for. Can we bring something in to be able to have our 1 hour meeting like the group in Canada does? To be able to advance some of these skills. So you've got advancing PMOs invest in developing skills for the project manager. So what do these project managers need in the next few years? If we do have AI happening in all these areas, what kind of training are they getting in artificial intelligence? Because it's going to be something that they need to see. What about leadership and change skills? As the PMO grows, soft skills like communication, negotiation, stakeholder engagement, they become as critical as ever. And so that didn't change. Our people still need to communicate. We still have to negotiate. We still have to be on board and not make everybody mad when we have a meeting. And then succession and pipeline. Oh my gosh. If this person leaves, do we have somebody, or this person retires, do we have somebody who's going to step into that position? So building that pipeline of leadership. Can you look at your team members and look down here and think this person is a great team member, will be an awesome project manager. This person is a great team member, but they will be an awesome business analyst. And so it allows you an opportunity to start looking ahead at some of your people. I know some of you are doing this already, but it allows you just to be able to take that fortitude to do that consistently. And then new skills for project practitioners, strategic and business acumen. So project professionals must think like business analysts and strategists, not just task managers. It's not just we're trying to do that activity and have it done by Thursday. We're trying to look and see what does this bring to the table? What's the spirit of what we're trying to do? So you're looking at benefits realization, value tracking as we do these things, portfolio alignment, thinking, return on investment, financial literacy, customer-centric planning to where the customer understands what's going on. They're part of it to where they're seeing it. It's transparent enough for them to understand what's happening. All of those will benefit not only the customer communication, but it'll also benefit the PMO. And then digital fluency, data-driven decision making. Oh my goodness, is this not what we should be doing? Making decisions based on data. So decision making must be supported by data rather than gut instinct. And we've all done the gut instinct thing. You get that feeling that something's not going well, and so we start checking on stuff. I get it. I mean, we all have those type of things. But when we're making decisions, we really are wanting to be able to support those decisions based on the data that we see. So decision making is supported by the data. Skills would include the ability to read dashboards and analytics. I've said in meetings where it was pretty obvious that the people looking at the dashboard didn't understand the dashboard, because had they understood it, they should have been more upset, because that dashboard was presented, it was really not that good, and people were not asking those type of questions. They were asking other type of questions like everything was fine. Understanding automation, understanding workflows, data storytelling, visualization, all of these components many of you are using very well already, I know, and I'm probably speaking to the choir. I get it, but we want to be more data driven and show evidence of it, not just that we're on time and on budget, but can they see how we're on time and on budget? Can they trust it? They trust it because I'm not going to lie to them, but can they see it as that piece of evidence when we meet with them? And then agile leadership and adaptive delivery. Even outside pure agile, adaptability is essential. So skills include hybrid delivery models. Most of us are running some type of hybrid right now. So you probably have agile plus components of waterfall in that. Not anything wrong with that. It might be exactly what you need customized for your organization. But sometimes we think we're more agile than what we really are. And so that's fine that you're hybrid. If it's working, then use that. That's what you should be doing. Value-based backlog thinking. Is the backlog, we got a lot of stuff in our product backlog, does it bring value? Or is it just stuff that we want? And then collaboration over command and control. Command and control, you're doing this and nothing's going to change without change order. Well, collaboration is maybe we do need to make a change, and we all see that needs to make a change. So it's not a negative. We caught it early and we don't want it to hurt anything. But old command and control is you're not changing anything unless you have a change order. Well, maybe we need a change order then on this, but it does need to change because we're hitting a target that has moved, and it's moved significantly enough for us to see the need to make that change. AI literacy. everything about AI is coming into play. And so you should be working with your people to train them in some of these areas. I know I have 2 grad classes, and I'm rewriting my grad classes to involve AI type of assignments in there. Now, the whole thing's not AI. Don't mistake what I'm saying, because both of them are project management. One's running an agile team, and the other is doing an agile project. And so I've got two graduate level courses, but I'm putting an AI assignment in there and some AI discussion boards in there to be able to start talking about it and trying to prepare these folks so that when they're out of the university, they understand, they've had some exposure to AI. So this is becoming a core competency, and in 18 months you'll see it even more. 18 months will not be writing prompts or anything. Prompts will be generated for us with very little information, and it will be very much more ingrained into what we're doing. And so that becomes a core competency. So understanding how AI tools support PM and the PM work is going to be huge. How can I use this to draft me a business case? How can I use this to draft me a schedule? And AI has the ability to do that. Not perfect, so stop using it and thinking it's perfect. It's a draft, and allows us to be able to start working with that and come up with something. So also ethical, transparent decision making with automation. How do we come up with? How did we make that decision? And so it's taking us from a black box to where we don't know how that decision was made in technology to more of a white box where we understand those steps. Now, that's easy to talk about, but there's a lot of black box decisions still being made in AI. And I think there's going to be, because the technology is advancing so fast that many times we see the answer, we like the answer, but I don't know the steps it went through to get to the answer. Knowing when human judgment needs to override AI. You saw the news recently where the guy was being driven by an automated car, and the car went on the glitz and wouldn't unlock the doors and let him out. Of course, I thought that was hilarious. I thought that was funny. Man, you could just tell he was not impressed. And so, but the point is that it would be scary because it's not taking you where it's supposed to take you. But that just should help us understand AI is not perfect, just like we're not perfect in the things we do either. All right, so let me close and bring this to a closure here. If you haven't looked at the listing on our website, we've got all of our webinars for the rest of the year on there. And so next month, we're going to be talking about AI in action, how to successfully implement AI across your organization. And so that'll be a 1-hour webinar in February on this. In March, we're going to be talking about leading renewal, guiding projects toward fresh beginnings. What do you do when you have a project that needs to go into recovery and needs to be revamped, and areas have to start over? In April, we're going to talk about strategic visionaries, guiding portfolios toward future value, for everything starting to look at through the eyes of value. And then May, we're going to talk about AI as your project leadership assistant. How can I use AI as that helper to help me brainstorm, to help me plan, to help me do some of those things? And so we'll show you some things about that. And then June, we're going to talk about making it stick, ensuring lessons learned becomes lessons applied. We have a lot of lessons learned that all of us have sat through over the years, and then a lot of them never made any difference at all. It was just a window dressing that went into an archive someplace. I'm sure your organization's different, but that's what you see a lot of times. In July, we're going to talk about inventing tomorrow's metrics. How do we come up with metrics that we don't even know what the technology is, and we're having to measure those? August, we're going to talk about building resilient projects, thriving on times of disruption. And you think it's disruptive now. When AI hits across the span and your industry is really going in the direction of AI, it's going to disrupt our way of thinking, the way we do business. September, we're talking about cybersecurity and projects, protecting data, teams, reputation. So we're going to bring some of these ideas together. October 16th, we're going to talk about beyond millennials, leading multi-generational project teams. And that's going to have a lot of people stuff on it. And then in November, we're going to talk about leading hybrid teams, aligning, adapting, delivering results. And then next December, leading strategic risk, preparing today for tomorrow's disruptions. And so that's going to have some risk associated with it as we do that. So one other thing. So those of you who've participated in a mastermind group, this is free. This helps you align your experience and understand a little bit more about taking the PMP test if you still have not done that. So if you haven't done it, you want to sign up for these free 7-minute project PMP mastery videos. And then also you want to get into a free mastermind group. We do a drawing today. We're finishing up a mastermind class. And so we'll be doing a drawing today. One person out of the group will get a free scholarship to come to the boot camp. And so we have 2 more that we'll do. And so if you already have your PMP, that's fine. Put your people in there so that they can understand what the PMP is all about and start thinking about that. And then the last thing, we do our virtual PMPs every other month. And so we're doing one starting on Monday. And so the next one will be in April. And so this is our schedule for the rest of the year. And so we'll be doing that virtually. If any place, people will be tapping in from any place in the world doing the PMP. So come be part of this. The test is changing in July. And so we're not sure all the changes associated with that, but the test is changing in July. So that will be a huge jump for a lot of people right there. And then if I can help you in any way, don't hesitate to call me or to contact us on our website or send me an email. I'll be glad to help you or talk to you any way possible. Okay. So our time's just about up. So let me thank you again for taking an hour out of your morning to get on here and be part of this. I hope it gave you some ideas at least. Can't do a lot in an hour, but I try to load it up and give you just as much as I possibly can. So I appreciate so much you guys attending month after month and getting your PDUs and also being able to be part of this. And so I hope it's something that that really benefits you, and I hope it's something that actually helps you in all of these areas as well. So God bless you guys. Thank y'all so much for being part of this, and I'll see you next month. Okay, bye everybody.